Excellent. Allow me to introduce myself, Joanne Lee, Dean of the LaVaughn College of Business. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you today to our second LIFT Symposium. This symposium is actually our commitment to bringing cutting-edge and timely financial topics to our business partners. But we also see it as a great opportunity to connect the financial services community with our most important constituents, our students today and our faculty. This symposium arguably is like the baby of our Department of Finance and Financial Services, and was designed to call attention to financial service profession at a time that we believe that industry is facing regulatory and demographic changes with the baby boomers' need for wealth management and also a huge retirement of a large number of professionals. At the LaVaughn College of Business, we're very proud to be the connector for all our stakeholders within the universities and the business community. With that, I'm giving a signal. I'm only allowed to speak 1 minute because this is a jam-packed symposium. I would like to thank Dr. Milena Akbari and also Mr. Bill Wood and the whole entire department for their time and effort in presenting this outstanding event. It is our vision at the college that the Department of Finance and Financial Services to become a regional resource for financial education at every single level. We see the LIFT Symposium as an integral part of this vision, and therefore, we will dedicate the time and effort going forward to see it grow year over year in both status and stature. So thank you all for coming today, for your support and participation. And with that, let me invite Dr. Akbari to the podium.
Thank you, Dean Lee. As is always the case in any event this size, I have a lot of people to thank. It took a lot of work and a lot of support, and so I get the best job of the whole day. I have a list of people to thank. I need to thank Dean Lee, first of all, for her support and encouragement throughout this process. She just keeps winding us up and sending us out to continue this effort. We also had a marvelous advisory board this year. Scott Edwards, where did Scott go? Scott is here from Cardinal Point Financial Group. Tracy Force, I think, is not with us, but she represented the Right Pac Credit Union on our board. Jeff Leitner had a family emergency, but he is the president and CEO of Marsh McLennan, and he's helped us out this year. Doreen Mogavero is a member of the New York Stock Exchange and a trader on the exchange. She's here. Henrietta Nye, the membership and student member director for the FPA and president of KIR Educational Resources. John Ramey, complex director and branch manager of UBS Financial Services in Indianapolis, has been a huge supporter. Jennifer Rule, our director of major gifts at the LaVaughn College of Business, an important part of our team. Bill Schroeder, right here, senior financial planner with Key Private Bank. John Smith from Cardinal Point Financial. He's actually responsible for the second T in our name. I may have told you earlier, today and tomorrow. And then, of course, our own administrative assistants, Sharon Wick and Tammy Boatman. Sharon is not with us. Tammy has been doing a mountain of work this week, so I wouldn't mind it if you gave Tammy a round of applause. Adam Wick is our marketing coordinator and has done a marvelous job with all aspects of our marketing. Of course, all of our speakers are here as well. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to all of our sponsors. Our silver patrons were Marsh McLennan Agency, Northwestern Mutual, iShares from BlackRock. Our platinum sponsor was UBS Financial, and so we really appreciate their generous gifts. We were fortunate to have 2 gold-level sponsors, and we will hear from each of them. The first is Cardinal Point Financial Group, and I'd like to invite Scott Edwards to the podium to give us a few remarks. Scott is coming.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Edwards. I'm with Cardinal Point Financial. Got a little workout walking around the lunchroom here today. How's the morning been so far? It's a lot of great information. I've only had the opportunity to be in one breakout. Certainly this morning's breakfast conversation was very good. And you know, we feel really fortunate to have the opportunity to sponsor this event. We have a lot of important changes that are coming to our industry. It's important to stay on top of those. It's important that we are ready for those changes and ready to move forward. We also have an aging population in our industry, and we need to develop young people who are going to be prepared to take over these practices in the future. I've had some great discussions last night and today with some of the students here. We've had the fortunate opportunity to work with some great interns that have come through this program. If you're with one of the other companies and you haven't had an opportunity to allow some of them to come into your business and help you out, you're missing out on a great opportunity. They're very good employees, very prepared for the challenges that face them, and we look forward to working with the program here today and in the future. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks, Scott. Your comments are well appreciated. We have a second gold sponsor as well in the person of Doreen Mogavero, and I'd like to invite Doreen to the stage to say a few words. Please, Doreen.
Good afternoon. As part of the aging population in this industry, I give you a special thanks because I need all this information now, more than I've ever needed before. But as I'm sure you're all aware, it has never been more important in the history of our industry to have events like this and to keep up on education. The times are changing so incredibly quickly with technology and the millennials moving up and the baby boomers moving out, as to say. So this has become very, very important, so I thank you all for having these events. It's very informative. I've had the great good fortune to work with Wright State University through the New York Stock Exchange FACS program initially. And I have to say, as you can imagine, I was a member there for 36 years, well, still am a member there. And I have seen a lot of students from a lot of schools, from Harvard to local colleges in New York. And I have to tell you that the Wright State students are among the brightest, most interested, and most engaging of all of the students that I have ever met, quite frankly. And that prompted me, along with, yes, they really are, they really are. And I said that from the beginning, did I not? I did. And it's been a great pleasure to work with them. If you have an opportunity to get to know them better and to hire them as interns or just to mentor them even for a day or two, invite them into your firms, I think that you would be very pleased with the results. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Doreen. I should have admitted that in this territory, this is Dr. Doreen Mogavero, because back in 2009, we gave Doreen an honorary doctorate here at Wright State University, which was a great day in our lives. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Dr. Robert Sweeney. He's the Executive Vice President of Strategy and Secretary of the Board of Trustees here at Wright State. But to us, Robert's not a vice president. Robert's actually a two-time graduate of our program, our former chair, our continuing colleague, and so it's always a delight to introduce Robert, who will introduce our speaker this afternoon. Thank you. You have yours? Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Again, thank you all for coming here. I get the distinct honor of bragging about Wright State University before I get to introduce the speaker. For those of you the first time here, we're coming up on about 49 years old, and what we've accomplished is nothing short of remarkable. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you are on campus over here, you'll see a building that says Neuroscience Engineering Collaboration Building. That went up, and it's a blend of what goes on with neuroscience and engineering. And there was a great pitch when they were coming to the board to get this done, as they had a young lady on a climbing wall, and her natural leg was on the lower rock, and her artificial limb was slightly up. And the question was, how does the brain know the artificial limb is sufficiently secure to transfer all the weight? That is neuroscience engineering collaboration. And in that building, we think we're going to have a major role in playing in curing Parkinson's disease. If you go a little further north on the campus, you come to the Student Success Center, where we're looking at how do you change education in a way that really makes it come alive and get students more students to the finish line. And today, one of our major competitors in higher education, and we were talking about this earlier, was don't go to school. So many students feel that they can't compete in college, that they can't learn, that they can't produce, and it's in our Student Success Center that we're helping students get to the finish line and achieve that dream, because again, it's not so much for them, but every generation that follows is going to benefit from that commitment that they've made. When we talk about Wright State University, and we're named for the Wright brothers, we talk about the innovation and the entrepreneurial spirit of the Wright brothers. But what is even more important to us is the courage of the Wright brothers. They physically left the earth. Newton told them, "You will come back." But they weren't sure how they were going to get back. And that courage is the courage that our students exhibit every day. We have people that will come to school as single parents and try to balance raising their children with getting an education to promote what is best for their kid moving forward. We have folks that are displaced from jobs, that have been doing something and want to come back and change their career and come and sit in a classroom with people half their age, or in some cases a third of their age. I took a psychology class and I went into the lab, and I had to sit down, and there were 3 other students sitting there, and when my butt hit the seat, the age of the table more than doubled. It was a very unusual experience, and every time they talked about how old people respond in this psychology class, 23 sets of eyes would turn to me to see, is that true? But as they were talking about this aging population, our industry, our department has an aging population, so I'd also like to encourage you all to consider possibly teaching as part of your career. You don't necessarily have to come and be a full-time professor, but opportunities to participate as adjuncts, service learning, internships with the students are great ways for you to get back and take the burden off some of these old people standing up over there. In this building, in a couple of weeks, Tom Hanks is going to show up. We are wrapping up our capital campaign. Many years ago, we started a $150 million capital campaign, and Tom Hanks agreed to be the honorary chairperson with Amanda Wright Lane, the grandniece of the Wright brothers. We're going to wrap that up this year. He's going to come back. And because one of the reasons is that, as Doreen was talking about the quality of the students that she's interacting with, that's how he came to know Wright State University. He hired a number of our students, and they've gone on to produce out in Hollywood, write, direct, act. He was so impressed with it, he's willing to commit. Then in a few months after that, the presidential debates are going to be here. We are sitting in the room where the media filing center will be. The debate itself will be in the arena. What we don't know at this point is what the format of the debate is going to be. It can be a podium debate where they come out and stand with the moderator down below, a table debate, they'll come out and sit at a table with the moderator, or a town hall. And depending on the format of the debate, that's going to dictate what the configuration of the Netter Center looks like for the debate. There's going to be very few people in the arena because the target for the debate are the 100 to 200 million people worldwide that are going to watch this. And so what we're telling everyone is that unless you're a student at Wright State University, you won't be eligible for a ticket, because the tickets that we get are all going to students. We have a lottery system that we're going to have for students to apply. But your industry has an opportunity to participate, and we're telling people to be very selfish about the way you think about it. We're going to have 3,000 to 5,000 media, and I say 3 to 5 because we've already had requests for 3,000 media credentials, 3,000 to 5,000 media here covering this debate. And they're not always here just for the politics of it. There will be media here that track climate change, and they're going to want to talk to experts on climate change. There'll be media here, they're going to be tracking advances in medicine, and they're going to talk about to experts in medicine. And they're also going to be media here covering the financial services industry. And to the extent that we have a network of experts that we can turn them onto, it really can serve your industry well. Well, we're encouraging people to put together B-roll, any sort of information that we can put into the press kit, that as they talk about the industry, as they talk about our community, we're able to put the best and brightest and our best foot forward. So we urge you, however you can, to get in touch with Seth Bogus in our communications department as an expert. So if we get those kinds of questions, we'll be able to direct the media to you. We're really excited about what this means for Ohio and what this means to the region. But it's really a tribute to this whole area. We have hosted many rallies. We introduced Sarah Palin to the world. Barack Obama was here about the same time. I would say talk about Joe Biden being here, but he said, welcome to Wayne State. So we're not as pleased with his performance, but George W. and Bill Clinton and a lot of folks have been through. We do a really good job on rallies. This is a debate and it's a very different animal, but it's really an opportunity for us as a region to put our best foot forward. So that's bragging about Wright State University, and that's not why you're here. You're here to hear our speaker, LaVaughn Henry. He is the Vice President and Senior Regional Office of the Cincinnati branch of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. Dr. Henry is responsible for building and maintaining a strong presence and reputation for the Federal Reserve throughout central and southern Ohio and eastern Kentucky. He also has a responsibility for working with key stakeholders, including the boards of directors of the Cincinnati branch, business advisory councils, depository institutions, business and civic leaders, and the public. Prior to joining the bank in 2009, Dr. Henry served as the Senior Director of Market Economics and Risk Analysis at PMI Group, one of the nation's largest mortgage insurers. He previously held positions as Director of Communications at Fannie Mae and Regional Manager for Government Affairs at Ford Motor Company. Additionally, Dr. Henry has held senior economic positions with the Budget Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, formerly the Office of Federal Housing Enterprise Oversight, the FDIC's Resolution Trust Corporation, and PricewaterhouseCoopers, where he led consulting engagements with the Federal Housing Administration. Dr. Henry serves on boards of directors of United Way of Greater Cincinnati, the Homeownership Center of Greater Cincinnati, Downtown Cincinnati, Inc., and the Brighton Center Project of Northern Kentucky. He's a member of the Board of Regents for Kentucky State University, the Economic Advisory Panel of Xavier University's Williams School of Business, the CEO Leadership Board of Northern Kentucky Education Council, and the Harvard Club of Cincinnati. In his free time, he's a member of the National Association of Business Economics, the American Economics Association, the International Association of Business Communicators, and 100 Black Men of America. Dr. Henry holds a bachelor's degree from Rockhurst University in Kansas City, Missouri, and an MA and a PhD of Wright State of Boston, Harvard University. Dr. Henry.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks so much, Robert. Truly appreciate it. Thank you. And for those who may have been here last year, I want to say thank you for inviting me back. Maybe I get a second chance to do it right this year. I don't know. Do it right. You heard that here first. But what I also am known for doing is wanting to talk to you, not lecture. And basically, I'm not one to stand in a podium. Let me come down and let's talk. And let's talk about something we really care about, our economy, okay? Our economy, and communicate with you how we at the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland and the Federal Reserve System are seeing the economy evolve and are crafting economic monetary policy to deal with that evolution. Cut to the chase, the way the Fed sees it right now is that we are on a stable and solid foundation to continue moving forward, albeit at a slow rate. Slow might be a little bit of an overstatement, but let's say a moderate rate. If we look at what the Federal Reserve's Open Market Committee just announced yesterday, what we see in their most recent statement is this, is that information that the committee has received since January continues to show that the economy has continued to evolve at a moderate rate of pace. Household spending is continuing to grow. The housing sector, for long in the doldrums, for long not responding, has continued to improve. But there are areas of concern. Our net exports have been soft, and business fixed investment has also been soft. Okay? As you may recall, our GDP last quarter didn't look that great, coming back a little bit now, but didn't look that great. We also see, though, that a range of indicators in the labor markets are continuing to show that this is actually, believe it or not, one of the strongest job creation markets we've had in this country in the last 17, almost 18 years. And we have the facts to prove it. But job creation doesn't tell the whole story. It's an issue of, are we underutilizing the labor we have in the markets? Are wages growing? Quick answer there, very slowly, very slowly. Inflation has picked up in recent months. However, based upon the committee's dual mandate of sustainable price growth and a target of 2%, inflation's still not hitting our goal. And that's affecting what policy comes next, what policy change comes next. Market-based measures of inflation compensation remain low. Survey-based measures of long-term inflations are little changed, with a little bit of move to the downside, basically saying that expectations for inflation are starting to soften beyond where they were before, making the job of the Fed, a little harder than it was before. So let's look at the numbers behind this, and I also want to say, please, at any time, if you have a question, just let me know. Raise your hand, speak out, do anything other than throw tomatoes. I am allergic. Now you know, okay? But please, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let's talk them as we go. Let's dialogue, not lecture, okay? First, let's talk about production and consumption, what we build and what we consume. What I have here is a graphic showing the evolution of real GDP in the US since, let's say, the red area, the Great Recession, through the most recent reporting quarter, which is fourth quarter. The yellow bar is a forecast given by macroeconomic advisors, and I will tell you it's pretty much in line with where the Federal Reserve sees this quarter going, about 2% growth. But what you see here is this, is that if you look at the evolution of our economy since the end of the Great Recession in 2009, we've been growing at approximately, at approximately a 2.1% rate, okay? Historically, the deeper a recession, the stronger recovery. Makes sense, right? The harder you throw a ball down, generally the higher it bounces back up. Well, normally in a recovery, as deep as we went, it would go about 4.3% growth. We're doing 2.1. Normal operating economy, about a 3.2% growth. We're doing 2.1, okay? Nonetheless, it's growth, but it's not in line with what historically is the norm. But I ask you this, my friends. Is that all bad? And also, can it be explained? And I posit to you, it's not necessarily all bad, and it definitely can be explained because we are in a fundamentally different economy now, moving forward, than we have been in at any time since World War II. A fundamentally different economy. We have a different labor force, we have different production methods, we have a different demographic, we have different education levels, all leading to slower, sustained growth from a more solid foundation. And we'll prove that, I'll attempt to prove that as we go, okay? Let's dig deeper, though, into what's causing that slower growth in the most recent quarter, which is 1% in GDP. If we look at the green bars, what we see for the 4 major areas of GDP. First set of bars, personal consumption, which accounts for about 70% of the US economy, okay? What we do every day, just going out and buying stuff, Best Buy, Home Depot, myself, McDonald's, you can tell this, right? That accounts for 70% of the US economy. In fact, you could take, this is great cocktail conversation. Well, this is to an economist, great cocktail conversation. You could take the US consumer sector, and if you just stripped us out and said, we're an economy, we're still bigger than every other economy in the world, just the consumers alone. We're that large. We have that much economic power, okay? Just the consumers alone. Well, if we look then at what consumers have been doing, personal consumption grew in the fourth quarter, at about a 2% rate. And as you can see, the pattern, blue, red, green, has been down each quarter, slowing into the fourth quarter. Fundamentally, we got a little bit more cautious. We've been getting a little bit more cautious because generally people think that we've been in recovery expansion for a long time now and things aren't moving as fast as possible, so therefore we must be going into recession, right? Wrong. Expansions don't die of old age. There's no economic theory that says it has to be 6 years and then you go into a recession because that's how it is. That's just not how the economics of this country works. Things slow to re-equilibrate, but basically, if you want to say what causes recessions, it's generally a shock to the system. It's generally a shock to the system somewhere that can't be compensated for in the near term. A shortage of labor, very strong, a shortage to commodities, extensive credit, and a shortage therefore of tightening of credit, of tightening of lending. Shortages generally are related to recessions. And guess what? We have no shortages operating in the economy right now of any substantial way. Right now, surveys show that people are concerned about a recession, but most reasonable economists are saying, and definitely at the Federal Reserve, the probability of that is less than 15%. It's that low. But that nonetheless, slow growth still ahead. And if you can see, and looking at the other sectors, we see that being played out. Gross private domestic investment, down 0.7%, similar to what was happening in the third quarter of the year. Our net export sector, down 2.7% in the fourth quarter. Imports down 0.6%. You may again ask yourself, why? Our dollar, with the exception of the last 2 days, has been exceptionally strong, okay? And it's basically because the US right now is the big guy, as always, on the block, but our economy is doing relatively very well relative to our trading partners, making the dollar a more appropriate and a more investment-worthy vehicle relative to other currencies in the world. So we have a very strong dollar. But on the flip side, that hurts our export potential. That hurts our exports, okay? And we've seen that. And we've also seen U.S. manufacturers react by reducing the price of goods they're sending overseas. But nonetheless, our export sector has been taking a little bit of a hit. On the flip side, our imports also have suffered a little bit, but that actually helps your GDP, okay, because you're buying less from overseas. But on net, our net export position has been pulled down. And what may shock you is the federal government was the government in general was pretty neutral during the fourth quarter. But that also is historically the norm because the fourth quarter of the year is the first quarter of the federal fiscal year, which is a slow spend quarter. If you go back one quarter, federal government expenditure was pretty solid at approximately 2%. Okay? So when you put it in the big picture, a lot of what's evolving in the broad economy is very explainable. Strong dollar, weak partners, volatility overseas, especially in the commodity markets, which we're going to talk about at length, basically oil, later in the presentation. Okay? Now, how are we doing with respect to how we produce? Are we doing better than we were, let's say, at the end of the recession or prior to the recession? Well, two basic measures. Industrial production, how much we're producing, and industrial capacity utilization, how we're producing it. Okay? If you see what I have here, what it shows is this, that industrial production is approximately 7 to 8% higher now than it was in 2012. If we go to prior to the recession, we're about at least 5 to 8% higher than we were prior to the recession in terms of total production. Over the course of the last year, our production has pretty much flattened out, and we've been pretty much holding a steady course. Again, this is consistent with a more cautious consumer sector and less purchases from overseas partners. So industrial production has held fairly stable and hasn't declined much. Capacity utilization is also gotten a little bit weaker. We're not needing to bring as much capacity to the productive process as we were before, but nonetheless, still it's substantially ahead where it was at the end of the recession when it was down about 65%, and now it's back up to about 79, 78%. Okay? But I'll tell you this, my friends. First answer to the question I posed at first is in this graph. And the question I posed at first, the question I posed is this: how can we be better off now in terms of total production and on a more stable path moving forward, but using less capacity to produce the same amount of goods? Any ideas? I should have told you there will be a test at the end. I don't see anyone taking notes. Young lady. Exactly. Your name is? Mary hit it dead on the head. Thanks, Mary. Investment in technology, productivity. Now, recently, I will tell you, our productivity growth over the course of about the last quarter to a half year has been pretty weak. Actually, a little bit negative, okay? But sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. Let's look at the long, big picture here. The big picture, okay? If you look back to the year 2000, the beginning of this century, total productivity growth in the United States, total productivity growth is up between 30 to 35%, okay? 30 to 35%. Now, what that fundamentally means is this, is that we can produce so much more now because of how we produce things by bringing technology to the table than we produced before by using less labor. Right? Mary, you don't have a question, statement. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. If I understand I don't know the exact correlation. I don't know the exact correlation, Mary, so I don't want to mislead you there. But depreciation clearly has slowed, okay, because of our investment schedule, okay, because of our continued productivity, okay. But the correlation of the two, I couldn't really give you more detail than that, okay. But what I did want to get across was this, is that we're producing more by using less labor. If one puts into a long context of time, 2000, what 5 people were building, now being done by 4 people, okay? 5 people at the line in 2000 are now being 4 people. In just the manufacturing sector alone, that's up since 2000 approximately 50%. 3 people became 2 people. So on net, what I'm really saying is this. What I'm really saying is that we just don't need as many people working now to produce the level of production we had before. But we absolutely, though, are employing more people. And we are absolutely having more output. So from that standpoint, my prima facie statement was, we are absolutely better off now than we have been in years, because we're employing more, we're being more productive, and we're having more output. But at the same time, you could argue and say, as I hope someone would, well, Dr. Henry, Gary, say that. Well, Dr. Henry, how can you say that when no one's getting pay raises, right? Let's be honest, we really haven't had any substantial pay growth in this country since about the early 2000s. We really haven't. So how could we absolutely be better off? Because I don't know. I lost my train of thought. We don't have, I'm sorry, you were going to say? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the output of that convention was that this is the first industrial revolution that has not actually benefited all of mankind. And by that I mean we may be having an easier time producing things because it's easier, and we're employing more people.
Right.
But the people that are left unemployed are not being able to enter the workforce again, maybe for the rest of their lives.
Okay.
So that presents quite a unique problem for the economy.
It does. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, you're singing to the choir on this one. Okay. Your name again is? Doreen hit it dead on the head. We are in substantially a different economy because we're in one of the first economies in Western civilization, in Western development, where we have not seen substantial growth in the well-being of the broader population relative to the total population, and we have a significant portion of our population who may be potentially permanently locked out of economic growth that we're seeing in the broader market. Okay, this is true. Now, my question becomes this. Not my question, my assertion really becomes this. Is it because of the structure of our economy, or is it because of our political framework? It's a combination. It's a combination. I mean, let's step back and just look at it from the economic side. Who here wants to drive a high-quality car, a high-quality vehicle or SUV? Raise your hands, please. Who wants primo quality? Who doesn't want to drive one? If you raise your hand, people want to drive high-quality vehicles, right? Who wants to pay top dollar for that high-quality car if they could get the same quality at a lower price? That's it. People want to pay the least and get the most. That makes common sense, right? Pay the least, get the most. How do you do that? You do it by technological change. You change the productive mix from labor to capital. By doing as such, you end up driving wage rates down over time. That's just the nature of the process. So therefore, the question is, if we do this in mass in an economy like the United States, as large as we are, that means that we at some point end up being long labor, right? Long labor, which is just another asset in the productive mix. And if you're long any asset, what happens to the price of that asset? It goes down. Okay? And what's the price of labor? The wage rate. Okay? So the wage rate pretty much gets weaker because of at least two factors. One, the productive mix changes caused by technology, and two, additional labor is being brought in to the mix because we're now competitive overseas, okay? We have to compete overseas. That's a better way to put it. We're competing overseas. So it also cheapens up domestic labor. So when you put all that together, it becomes an issue of not just our economy, but also our political structure. Now, put this also in context, that the alternative, the outcome, not the alternative, the outcome of that is that as wage growth slows, consumption of all goods and services slows. One very important consumer good is education. As we become, as a society, less amenable to investing in public education at all levels, and we see that by the amount of student debt that gets drawn up every year, as we become less supportive of our public institutions, that means persons are more likely to have to cut back on their consumption of education over the long term, making them less competitive, making them less likely to be active in the workforce for a longer period of time, implying greater disenfranchisement across the system. You can argue, and this is not the position of the Federal Reserve, let me really just make this statement, but it's pretty much obvious at some points. You can argue that we're becoming victims of our own success. We're becoming victims of our own success. We have made the greatest productive machine in the history of the world. We're just becoming better and better and better at doing what we've done before. But unless we marry that growth in productive capacity with educational investment, we will have increased disenfranchisement across our system over the long term. And it's just a fact. I argue this, and I am so far off the mark of what I was talking about before, but who cares? I argue this. If you go back 30, 40, maybe even 20, but let's say 30 or 40 to be safe, years ago, okay? Now, all these gentlemen here, we were all old enough to know this. All you young ladies, y'all weren't born yet, okay? I can suck up really well, okay? John, what was the most divisive issue? Be honest here. What was the most divisive issue in the American milieu back 30, 40 years ago? Race. Fair statement? It was race, okay? It was me versus you. It was. John, fast forward to today. What's the most divisive issues dealing with now? You could argue immigration, but you could also argue immigration as a function of something else. I'm going to the base level. I'm going to income. Okay? Income differences. But that's really not even the base issue. What's income a function of? You got it. It's education. Okay? The greater your access to education, the greater your access to opportunity, the more freedom you have, and the more possibility of you moving up that income level regardless of race. Fair statement? Okay? Yeah, racism still exists, but it's not like what it was 30 or 40 years ago. That's a fact. But what is true is that if you take, and this is a fact, if you take a young white guy out of Appalachia with no education, or less than a high school education, or you take a brother off the west side of Chicago, or you take a Latino off the east side of LA, again, with no education, I can guarantee you their life opportunities are pretty much the same, low to nowhere, if they didn't graduate high school. And they're facing the same issues. It's just a different drug, whether it was meth, whether it was weed, or whether it's coke. It's facing the same issue. And it's because of our societies. I'm on my soapbox now. You shouldn't have put me up on it. Blame Doreen. But our issue in this country is being a function of our investment in education across the board and making it accessible. Something we also need to consider. We all know, and this is fact, all is fact. Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. We all know that with education, you have a better life opportunity. With a college education, you have a much greater better opportunity. Here's the deal. You know what the unemployment rate is for college-educated professionals with 2 years or greater of experience and 25 years or older? What the unemployment rate is? Yeah, what's that?
I'd say 2%.
Bill is darn near there. It's about 3% or so, okay? During the Great Recession, it peaked about 6% or so. It's about 2, 3, maybe 4% now. You know what the unemployment rate is for those groups of people I was speaking about, those young men without a high school degree? You got it. Now, during the recession, it approached 50. That's how much education matters, okay? Another thing is, keep in mind, only about 28% of the United States has a college degree. Much more than elsewhere in the world, not everywhere, but many other places, but only 28%. Now, how did I get on this? Want me to get back on it here? I can keep on going on this. Yes. Okay, yeah, sure. Speak up. I can't hear y'all.
One more question while you're on the soapbox.
Oh, I'll get back on it. Don't think I won't.
I find this very fascinating.
Brandon. Okay.
Finance professor at Wright State.
Okay.
I want to know what the Fed's opinion is, or the Federal Reserve's opinion is about increasing the minimum wage to somewhere around $15, and also what is your personal opinion?
Okay. I'm glad Brandon gave me the out. Okay? Because I'm going to give you both. Okay? I'm going to give you both. First, what is the Fed's opinion? Well,
Its impact on the economy.
Okay, impact on the economy. That's a better way to put it, impact on the economy. We do a lot of research in that area, but in terms of what you might want to call opinion or position, that truly is on the fiscal side, okay? And the Fed doesn't take positions on fiscal policy. But impact on the economy, what the research shows is this, and this is, it's not just Fed research, it's broad research everywhere, is that you have a short-term effect and a long-term effect. Short-term, first off is, I need to give you really kind of a backdrop to it in this way. No professors answer this, please, because you probably already know the answers, and therefore you might prove me wrong. But what percent of the population do you think makes minimum wage? Anybody have an idea? About 14. About 14. Okay. That's about right, maybe a little bit high depending where you are, okay? It's probably closer down to the 10% or lower, okay? Now, first off is, majority of people don't make by far the minimum wage. They make much more than that. Second, the population that we're looking at, I got one of those new Fitbit Blazers, they're so cool. The point really I'm going is this. The portion of the population that is more likely to be making minimum wage are teenagers, people entering the workforce, okay? It's not this huge mass of people who are making minimum wage for all their lives. That's just really not kind of how it works. It's generally, not always, generally a young population entering the workforce and transitioning through. And from that standpoint, it tends to have less impact overall on consumption than, on declining on consumption than one might, not consumption, on the economy than one might expect. There is a two-part effect. One, for that population that is taking minimum wage and then gets this huge windfall, permanent windfall, you do tend to see increased consumption. And it just makes sense. Your marginal propensity to consume at that level is pretty much 100%. If you get more, you're going to consume more, okay? Now, there's also, though, can be pulled back from this, there also is an impact on the employer, especially small business employers. It raises their cost. So small businesses do immediately feel an impact on their cost structure and may have to adjust their use of labor, okay? But they also, and depending on the nature of the business, have to admit that because they're seeing a higher amount of income for a dedicated population, the purchases of their goods and products also go up. Prices should go up over the long term. Proof positive. Who here thinks Walmart gives people raises just because they want to be nice? Come on, big corporations do that all the time, right? Heck no, they're not stupid. Walmart's not stupid. But there's a reason Walmart raised everyone's wages. It was this month, wasn't it? Okay, there's a reason. The same reason Henry Ford raised people back then to $5 a day. The more income you have, the more likely you are to buy my product. Okay? And Walmart might take it on the chin today, but by seeing higher level of income of their employees who also are pretty much Walmart shoppers, they will benefit over the long term. So the answer about the Fed side is the research shows the effect is mixed. Negative impacts in the short term on small business, but works out over the long term. Positive impact on a small population, generally a young population, okay? My opinion is that, oh hell, I didn't say my opinion. My opinion is, look, we can't continue to go down a path of impoverishing a good percentage of our people in this country. It just won't work. You're gonna end up having, guess what? A huge amount of people wanting to go out and elect people who have no idea whatsoever, but they just wanna send a voice, send a vote that they're gonna not take it anymore. And these people may be on the right or the left, but that's what they're saying. I wonder where that came from. Is there any media in the room? Oh, there is. No. That's not the opinion of the Fed, so. Okay, we're way behind. Marlena, what time am I supposed to be done? Good luck with that. Sure. Eventually going to get that done. Yep.
And in 2030, we're all hitting the huge issue of we have a lot of people who are no longer going to be able to work, dependent upon.
That's already hitting us. That's already hitting us.
And it's going to blow up government budgets. It's going to blow up our local economy.
3 years. All right, I'm telling you for a fact. Here's the deal, okay? CBO, okay? Don't forget your statement, Bill. But I want to express some stuff. What Bill is talking about is our future, okay? You're basically talking about, okay, we have a declining labor force participation rate right now, primarily caused not because of people leaving the employment force because they're discouraged. Guess what? That percent of people, it's less than like 1% of the total population of the labor force. It's not that large. But what is large are the percent of people who are retiring, going home because they're aging out of the workforce. That's the main driver of declining labor force participation right now. So here's the deal, my friends. What's happening is this. We've seen labor force participation in this country peak at about 68% in 2000. It's now down to about 62, maybe 63%. I think it went up 0.1% last quarter. Big whoop. It's still down. And it's going down because older people, these old guys around the room that I told you about before, me and you, John, okay? We're going home. We're going home. And we're not being replaced as fast as we used to be with younger people. So what ends up happening is that from a budget standpoint, our dependence on entitlements in this country, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, increases. Right now, the budget deficit is at the lowest it has been in the last 8 years, okay? And on a percentage basis, it's literally at the point where it literally doesn't matter, okay? Right now, the budget deficit last year ended about $480 billion. Yeah, it's more than John or I make in a year. Than I'm making a year, I'm not sure about John. But here's the deal, okay? Is that in 2009, the budget deficit was $1.4 trillion. It's now less than $500 billion. Go forward about 4 years to 2020, CBO estimates that that budget deficit is going to start going up this year, that it's going to start approaching back to that level in about 3 to 4 years because of people leaving the workforce. So that argues for fiscal change in the immediate, not in the long term. I cut you off, Bill. What's up?
Across the board, the countries, China, England, they all have the same or if not worse problems that we have with an aging population.
China, I don't know.
Social Security.
I might be wrong on China. Oh, China, Social Security, I don't think they have it.
Correct.
It's called young people.
Right. Well, they're planning on putting tax dollars to pay all that.
Okay.
Now they're doing 2 kids instead of 1 to try to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to blow up economies all over the world, which we trade with as well as our own.
Mm-hmm. So basically you're saying an aging population is going to hurt the economy. Yeah, yeah.
Depression in 2030 because of world depression.
Here's the deal, and I've been an economist for what it's worth now, more than 30 plus years. Don't believe any economic forecast beyond 5 years. I mean, really, there's so many things that can happen. Who would have believed, let's be honest, that we'd be where we are right now in 2016 relative to where we were in 2009? Okay, the stock market is now at what? Back to 17,000? Or is it 16,000? I can't remember which one it is. 17? It was 7,500, wasn't it, in April of 2009? Who would have believed it? Who would have believed that we would have had an unemployment rate move from 10% down to 5%? Okay? And you can just continue down the road. Every economic model was wrong, except for LaVaughns, but no one asked my opinion at that point. But don't believe it past 5 years. Okay, I am so not doing the right thing. I should probably tell you what's in this presentation. You want me to just continue to talk or tell you this? Okay. Sure. I can't hear you. Mm-hmm. 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 Yep. Mm-hmm.
So why is Chairman yelling that
Mhm.
and let's forget about sharing development in your opinion, or
Mhm.
share for the day, would you be ready to
Okay. This is not LaVaughn hedging his bets. This is truthfully how I feel, straight up. I believe the current policy of the FOMC is the right policy, and here's why, okay? Let's go way ahead. That's not how. Let's go way ahead. See, we were going to talk about dual mandate, but we didn't get there yet. Okay. This is what your name is? Dave. This is what Dave was talking about. We have a dual mandate, okay? That dual mandate speaks to two things. Maximum employment. Got to achieve maximum employment. Fed views that approximately 5%, anywhere 4, 6, 5, 5, 3, okay? Call it 5%. From that standpoint, that single measure, you could argue, yeah, we're there. The other part of that is stable price growth, okay? The way the Fed measures that is 2% on average price growth over the long run with personal consumption expenditure in the personal consumption expenditure index, okay? That's a more technical way of looking at, let's say, consumer price inflation. So let's just focus on consumer price inflation, okay? Let me jump ahead real quick on that. This is the path we've seen in consumer price inflation. If you look over the course of the last 5 months, no, 6 months, since September, monthly consumer price inflation has been, with the exception of October, coming down, getting weaker and weaker. If you look at the all-in, the headline index, it's running at 1%, coming down. If you look at just the core, yeah, it's up a little bit, all of 0.3% at 2.3%. But headline inflation is running at about 1%. So from that measure, we're not there yet. Now, I want to go specifically, Dave, to why the FOMC is making the right call, by many people much smarter than myself's opinion. We're in a situation where too fast to move to what might be considered a normal structure again could be more debilitating than not moving at all. And here's what I mean. Right now, if we look at what's really driving price changes, it's because of technological change in the oil market. We're pumping so much more, okay? And we haven't seen OPEC respond by cutting back oil prices, by cutting back oil supply. If you look at the path of West Texas and Brent crude, we've seen prices decline since July of 2014, by about 70%, okay? They peaked around 120 a barrel. Today, they're around 40 a barrel. And that's way up from where it was about 3 weeks ago. It was 26 a barrel. So we had this huge fall off in price of a necessary commodity, which has had, and I want to bring this out to you, not just positive effects in the economy, but also negative effects in the economy. And this goes back into the positioning of why slowing down the number of rate increases or going to a slower level is significant. What I mean is this. Low oil prices, probably, who here is going out and mining oil after this? Probably nobody, right? Who here is going out sometime the next week and filling your car up? Okay, you're probably happy with what you're doing now versus what you did about 2 years ago, aren't you? I know I am. I filled my car up for $18 the other day, okay, with premium. I'm very proud of that. I've lived my life goal. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. It's not always good. We have lost about 120,000 good paying jobs in that sector because of low oil prices. Okay? West Texas, North Dakota, some parts of Ohio, okay? Jobs are going away because of cheap oil. In addition to that, you got to consider that banks' balance sheets are also at risk. Not in a substantial way, but even still, bank loans were extended to finance pipe going down in the ground. You also have to factor this into it. Manufacturing of steel, those pipes, that's been ended. Because we got enough, right? We've got enough rigs out. And actually, put this in context, if you look at the impact on our active rig count, again, down by about 70%. We, going into this period, about 2008 and 2009, we had about 200 rigs in the ground. Prior recession, we had about 400 rigs or so, okay? When we learned how to send pipe into the ground and then go horizontal, i.e. engage in hydraulic fracking, rig count in this country went up to about 1,600, peaked at 1,600. It's down now to about 495 or so, call it 500. It's down about 70%. So the deal is, you have an impact of weakening employment in a smaller sector of the economy, of weakening demand in a key sector of the economy, manufacturing, and you have an issue, it's not a big issue really at all though, of bank balance sheets may being impacted because of charge-offs because of energy loans, okay? But I'm telling you, that's really small compared to what's happening in the banking industry now. Right now, I'll tell you, our banking sector is the best capitalized it's been in this country probably in 50 years. They're that solid now. Now, the deal is, one thing the chair has said repeatedly is that she wants the rate moves to be slow, gradual, and data dependent, okay? Not to any set schedule, not to saying has to happen in the first quarter, has to happen in the second quarter. No, has to happen when it's appropriate to happen. And here's the why. What's the Fed's greatest asset? John, I've picked on you a lot, so I won't pick on you anymore. Until now. What would you argue is the Fed's greatest asset? Or one of them?
It's been fueling the markets with the quantitative easing.
You hit it. Can I summarize that? Credibility. John basically said fueling the market with quantitative easing. Why did quantitative easing work? Because people knew and believed and knew the Fed would stick with the policy. Fair statement? We would stick with the policy. People know you're going to do what you say you're going to do. You have credibility, right? You have credibility. You trust the Fed first knows what it's going to do. You may differ with what they do, with what we do, but you trust that we will stick with our policies. And our policy has been about as transparent as you can get. And that policy is to make all rate moves, monetary policy adjustments open, transparent, and based on data. Had a 25 basis point move in December. Did y'all feel that huge earthquake of a move? Really rocked the markets, right? But now, how would you feel if we went into January and we had a whole lot of volatility in the stock markets and oil just kind of fell out of bed all of a sudden and really started crashing in price? And then the Fed comes into a March meeting and said, okay, we got scared, we're going to reverse what we did in December. Think that helps people's credibility? No. Because It's not saying everything was expected, but you don't make monetary policy based on 1, 2, or even 3 months of data. It's what the FOMC views over the long term as being the most likely path of the economy. And the most likely path of the economy, which I was trying to build to, and I'm not saying y'all pulled me off target, you did, but I'm not saying it. The most likely path of the economy is slow and steady growth over the long term, okay? About 2%, 2.3% growth over the long term. And from that context, ask yourself this: is it so important that the FOMC change interest rates in March versus April versus June versus whenever's the next one, August or whenever? Does it have to be today? Or can it be again, wait, see, adapt to the market? And that's the real deal. Chairman Yellen is very judicious. She really wants to make sure a move is right and it's not backed out. It's not something you reverse at the next meeting, because when you start doing that, you lose credibility. And when you lose credibility, what happens? We go back to situations like 2008, 2009, when no one had faith in the markets. We don't need that. Right now, you could argue our entire economy is based on one hand clapping. Where's fiscal? Who knows? But monetary policy has been there for you. It's going to continue being there for you. And that's not a Federal Reserve employee singing from the choir. That's really what I believe, Dave. Answer your question? Okay. You didn't think I was going to answer that, did you? I'm going to show it to you. I got to come back to this because I got to come back to this. Let me show you something. Here's what the Fed said yesterday. Also, again, see these 2 pages here? Take notes. There will be a test. I've told you that before. Okay. That's what the Fed Open Market Committee members, the 17 sitting members of the FOMC, feel they will do by the end of this year. Every quarter, each of the Fed presidents and each of the governors, that's 17, we have 2 openings right now, put out a projection for the next 3 years and into the longer run where they see actual Fed funds rates going by year end. Right now, we're in a trading band of 25 to 50 basis points? 2016, by end of the year, majority of committee members are calling for a number somewhere in about 88 basis points, as high as 137, as low as 67. Okay? So basically, somewhere, let's average these, that's somewhere at 1%. If we're at 50 now, let's do the math. See what I'm saying? So the Fed has said, and Chairman Yellen said this yesterday in her statements, that slow and steady is the way. Also, this is, Marlena, you can make this available if you want to. Okay, I wanted to give you copies before I came, but I didn't have a chance to do it. But you can get this and use it as much as you want, okay? You can also find it online, federalreserve.gov, okay? The monetary policy statement, it's right online. In fact, truthfully, anyone who wants to know where the Fed's gonna go, just go online. It's almost stated at this point. That's where, end of the year. That's where it is. And there is something you may not see because it's just one graph, but I'll tell you this. If you compare where the Fed sees itself, where the FOMC sees short rates going by year end now, versus just a quarter ago, it's lower than it would have been. Step back for a second. Fed funds in a normal operating economy, peaks somewhere, not always, but peaks somewhere around about 4.5%, 5%, okay? When you get to where you want to go, let's call it destination. About 4.5 to 5%. Well, we see during the period of the Great Recession and the financial crisis, rates fell to effectively 0. And now, with that huge move, that rate is now up to 25 to 50 basis points. Okay? But normally, it would be 4, 4.5, 5%. The committee now views this slower growth path we're on as terminating somewhere around 3.25% in the long run. See it? 3.25%. Almost a full 1.5 points below what would be considered normal. Meaning, fewer rate moves at a slower velocity, that's the rate moves, but at a slower trajectory to get to a lower number. Because, go back to my original statement, and my original statement was, we are in a substantially different economy now than we may have been in the last 30 years. I'll prove that in just one graph. That's the 10-year consummatory treasury since 1980. It's been continuously moving down. We peaked in the high inflation days at about 16% on the 10-year. It's now trading pretty consistently at about 2%. Now you think about all the things that happened over the course of those last 36 years. But the move has been toward lower interest rates throughout. Some of the big changes, inflation has become less of an issue. Still in our mandate, but much lower than historically would be. Major shocks to the economy, with the exception of right here, generally are much more muted, with the exception of the Great Recession. We also have a greater feel for productive mix, how it plays out over time. We have a more competitive market environment in the labor markets through trade agreements and opening up our borders that makes things more stable over time. Our wage growth has been exceptionally muted, so much so that, believe it or not, even after accounting for health care, it's running pretty stable at about 2 to 2.25% now, and has been doing that since prior to the recession. Okay? So when you put it all together, this economy, oh, I forgot to say something else. This economy is truly operating from a much stabler household sector than at any time it has in the last 35 years. Look here. Those are different measures of consumer debt obligation ratios. They are at the lowest, and the Fed has tracked these every quarter since 1980. These are at the lowest levels they've been since President Reagan was elected. Okay? Mortgage debt service ratio, lowest it's been since 80. Consumer debt service ratio, lowest it's been since 1992. Debt service ratio overall, lowest it's ever been. Financial obligation ratio, lowest it's ever been. The average U.S. household has a much sounder financial footing now than it had prior to the recession. We're not we are not growing our earnings like we were. We're also not spending willy-nilly like we were before either. We're also being much more judicious with our use of debt. If you look here, red line is the level of revolving consumer credit in the country, credit cards, HELOCs, that type of stuff, has yet to return to the level that it was prior to the recession. If you look at non-revolving consumer credit, it's slowed recently, but it is above where it used to be and is up there now for two reasons. One, because student loans have continued to grow. They've slowed as of recent, but student loans are the major issue here. But also because our auto sector is doing so exceptionally well. Most of those are auto loans. Okay, and delinquency rates on auto loans have not gone up substantially. In fact, right now, this year, put this in context, last year we did 17.5 million auto sales in this country, 17.5 million. To break even in the industry, it's approximately 14 million. Prior to the recession, we were doing about 16 million. Estimate this year is continued to be about 17.5 million units. So I could go past my 125 time, and I'm sorry, Milena, but fundamentally, what I'm saying really is this. If you look at the U.S. economy now, we are in a situation of, no, it's not a 3% growth, it's not 4% growth, and it's not 0, and it's not 1. It's steady as she goes, 2.25% or so. But it's off a much more solid base than it has been in the last 8 to 9 years, and in some cases, last 30 years. That all being said, go back to my soapbox. It's nowhere perfect. Okay, our economy is far from perfect. There are many things we still have to work out. Doreen hit it on the head. We have growing disenfranchisement in this system. I argue not based on race, but based upon access to opportunity, based upon educational differences, okay, which feeds all the way through the issue of income and generations. And until we get a hold of that and admit that that's really a growing issue, we're going to have more of what's happening right now in our political sector. And I guarantee that. And that's not the position of the Fed, but that's my humble opinion. Questions, comments, concerns? I'm sorry I didn't go through exactly like I wanted to, but maybe we got more said and done this way. Who knows? Yes, Bill. Bill, I would love to talk to you about it offline. I can't because, are you in the media? Please, Ben. The Fed can't talk about, or should not talk, can't talk about fiscal issues, okay? I get close, but I can't, okay? All I can say is that we do have to have something done with it, but I'll tell you why. Okay, other questions, comments, concerns?
Can you comment at all about negative interest rates?
Sure. Okay. As you're also probably aware, some of the other central banks around the world have embarked upon what's called negative interest rates, specifically the ECB and the Bank of Japan. What that fundamentally means is that if you are a member bank of that central bank system, your excess reserves, when you park them at, let's say, the ECB, instead of you go in with, let's say, ridiculous numbers here, $100, and when you come back in a year, you got $99.50, okay? So basically, the central bank is charging the commercial bank an interest rate that costs them to hold their money. Why would they do that, you might ask? Because of this. What the central bank really wants the bank to do, the commercial bank to do, is go out and loan that money, okay? Rapid and to many people because something that I should have brought out when I was talking about inflation is that you think we have weak inflation outcomes over here. Go to our trading partners. Some of them are outright suffering from deflation, okay? And they really need to juice up their economy. So how you do that is you actually cost people money by not making loans. That's why you would have it. Now, does it work? Well, so far, based upon the early reviews, is it doesn't have this major impact, okay? It really doesn't have that major of an impact, but that's early reviews. Would the Fed do something like that? I can't characterize what the FOMC would do, but I can tell you this, just based upon the math alone, it doesn't make sense because that's the opposite direction of our policy right now. Our policy is to continue to monitor the economic environment, which we expect to still continue to grow, implying that that the FOMC is focusing more so on raising rates. Why make them negative and go against the policy you're trying to encourage? Okay? Because it just doesn't make sense in our situation. Answer your question? Thank you. Other questions? I will talk to the cows come home. You know this, and I'll keep on going. Do you tell me to shut up? Want me to shut up, Marlena? Okay, Marlena wants me to shut up. Thanks, everyone. As I like to also say, I am an economist, and that's my story, and I am going to stick with it until probably the 30th of the month when new data comes out, and after that, who knows? Thanks, everyone. Okay.